Welcome to So I Married a Film Critic, a discussion between a professional film critic and lecturer and me, his wife of 20 years, who just likes to watch movies for fun. I'm your co-host, Julia.
This is Barry the Film Critic. Hello, everyone.
And tonight we decided to watch a scary movie. Well,
quasi-scary, sort of scary.
You know what? It's only scary because of the jump scares.
And it's Halloween. If you're listening to this, it's October 31st. Happy Halloween, everyone.
Is it coming out on Halloween?
This episode?
Yeah.
Isn't it? Isn't this our Halloween episode?
Yeah, but Halloween's on a Tuesday, so I don't know.
Oh, is that not scary? Ooh, it's on a Tuesday.
Well, no, because our episodes come out on Fridays. So, I don't know. It might come out before that, but...
If you're listening to this on Arbor Day, ooh.
Okay, well, we are talking about 1998's Urban Legend. It has a little bit of a starry cast.
Yeah, extremely so. I mean, especially if you were a young teen in 1998, this was a huge cast. You had Jordan Catalano, some guy named Jared Leto in the lead role, and you had Alicia Witt, who at this point, let's see, she was sort of beginning a second chapter of her career because her first movie was David Lynch's Dune. When she was a little girl, she did that film. So this is one of her first movies grown up. She subsequently appeared in Vanilla Sky and a few other interesting movies. And she also has, I believe, something of a music career now. You also got Tara Reid pre-American Pie. You've got Michael Rosenbaum before he played Lex Luthor on Smallville. And then, of course, our favorite, Joshua Jackson. Pacey.
Yeah.
In his paciness. This was back when that was the biggest show on TV.
I was more of a Dawson girl, so...
You're more down with the Vanderbeek?
Yeah, I was at the time.
Okay. And then Rebecca Gayheart, who I feel like her legacy is this film.
And Noxzema commercials, which they
Noxzema.
do mention.
They do mention it. Yeah, it's weird because this movie is... So this is 1998. 2 years earlier, Scream comes out. And Scream is not only a surprise blockbuster. I mean, they opened Scream on Christmas Day, which was such a bad idea. But the word of mouth carried the movie into the next summer. Scream was such a huge movie. It brought Wes Craven back into prominence. Everybody attached to that movie, became bigger than they ever were before. And Scream felt like the last word on this because Scream was, yes, it's a celebration of these kinds of movies, but it was also making fun of it. It was dissecting it. Scream was this brilliant upending of teen slasher movie tropes. So it really felt like, okay, Scream has done it. Clearly, they can't go back to making generic teen slasher. Yes, they can. And they did. Immediately after Scream, the year after you had I Know What You Did Last Summer. And then here comes Urban Legend and Disturbing Behavior and Halloween H2O. Like, they went back to making old-fashioned teen slasher movies because instead of Scream being the last word, it just sort of restarted it all. And Urban Legend wants to be like Scream. There's lots of in-jokes, rather. There's quite a few of them. But it's not quite that sharp. It's definitely not a comedy. It's pretty nasty, I gotta say. For a movie it's not terribly gory for a mainstream horror film, but it's got a mean side to it.
This movie?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Scream is still the best of its type, although I gotta say I don't think Scream has ever topped its first 15 minutes.
Agreed.
That opening scene with Drew Barrymore is so powerful. It still is. It's sort of a master class on this whole genre. It's some of the best directing that Wes Craven's ever done. Drew Barrymore is extraordinary in that opening scene. Every time I watch Scream, it's like that opening scene is just, I mean, it's extraordinary. And then there's the rest of the movie, which is pretty good.
Okay, well, you said we could either watch Urban Legend or I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I'm really glad we picked this one because I gotta say, I'm not a fan of the slow walk of the bad guy, you know? No, seriously.
Well, they got killing to do. There's no rush. They'll get to it.
Well, okay.
She's over there screaming. He'll find her.
Well, this movie doesn't have a lot of that. And I kind of like that.
Well, when you're wearing a jacket that heavy, you got to get to the killing right away.
Yeah.
Because you're just sweating like mad in there. Can we say that this is one of the dumbest disguises ever for a killer? It just, I mean, so Michael Myers had a Halloween mask. Freddy Krueger's got the glove, and of course the pizza complexion. Jason Voorhees, Jason Voorhees wears the hockey mask. And what do they come up with here? A really big, burly, bushy snow jacket.
Yeah, and then I guess a black mask over someone's face.
I think the idea is that the jacket is so big and burly that the hood just sort of covers the facial features.
Yeah.
It's really ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to make matters worse, they did a sequel, which we don't have to talk too much about. It's really not worth talking about. The sequel is really bad. The sequel is called Urban Legends Final Cut, came out in 2000. I saw that one in the theater too. And in the sequel, it's a fencing mask.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which isn't a whole lot more exciting.
No.
No.
That's not really that scary.
It isn't. That's the thing. It's not scary.
Yeah.
Because with Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, the idea is that there's someone behind that mask, and that someone is truly terrifying. And here we've got these characters, these villains rather, who they're sort of, they talk up these characters and the lore behind them, but like it's not quite the same thing, especially with Michael Myers. It's like, who, you know, Donald Pleasance as Sam Loomis is constantly talking about the pure evil, the shape behind that mask. And, you know, Jason Voorhees, it's a little boy who is thought to be dead and drowned. In this case, it's like, okay, who's wearing a burly coat and still able to be quite good at murder?
Yeah. Well, let's get into it because we have a lot of urban legends to discuss.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. I wish I had my encyclopedia of urban legends with me.
I've actually read the Encyclopedia of Urban Legends, which I believe was published in 2002.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Because when I asked you if that was a real thing, you said you didn't know.
When the movie came out, I don't think it was real at all. But subsequently, it was definitely real.
Oh, okay.
Because I actually confirmed a couple urban legends I had been familiar with. I wrote about this in an article a couple of years back. So the urban legend, I think, there are two that really scared me. One I heard about. The two that really bothered me, one is in this movie, the one about, aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light?
Ooh, that is...
I heard that when I was in college.
Really?
A year before this movie came out, and it terrified me.
Yeah.
Terrified me. I don't remember who it was, some girl in the library of our university where we were studying. You know, I should have been studying for my theology paper, and she hits me with this story. You know, and I thought it was the scariest thing. And I went back to my dorm room. Sure enough, all the lights were off. And I remember like putting on like a nightlight or something. Because I'm like, I can't sleep. It scared me that much. And
were your roommates like, when you came home, were they like doing it?
No, but he was a heavy metal goth guy. Just like he was kind of the male equivalent of what Daniel Harris is playing in this movie. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. So no, that really scared me. I remember like putting the covers up like past my nose. I was so freaked out. I really was. And the other one that freaked me out, but it really made me understand what an urban legend is. I had heard the story of the hippie babysitter. Do you know this one?
Oh, is this the dog one?
Yeah, there's variations on it. Mm-hmm. And the one I heard was the most extreme because the PG version, like the lightest version of the story is that back in the 60s, these parents trusted their baby to be sat by these two hippies. Bye. Okay, dude, don't worry. We'll take care of your baby. So about an hour into the evening, the parents are like, let's go check on our child. So they make a phone call home and they call the hippies like, hey, everything going okay? And the hippie's like, yeah, man, we just dropped an acid pill, but we're doing good. We're going to cook this turkey here that we just stuffed. And they're like, we don't have a turkey. So variations of it.
Ooh.
The parents go home. One version is that they did it to the dog. Another one is that they did it to a baby.
Oh my gosh.
And they stuffed the baby and they put it in the... And the version I heard was that the parents come home and they basically all drop acid and then they all basically eat the stuffed kid.
Ew.
Yeah, which again, like, it's such a crazy story.
That's so bad.
But
disgusting.
It's gross. But the thing about it, it's like an urban legend. It's like a game of telephone. Mm-hmm. You know, it changes the more times you hear it. And that was the interesting thing because, like, the aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light? Every time I heard it, it was very simple. Very simple. It's just like it is in the movie. It's a really quick kind of ghost story. And that's why it really scared me because, like, that sounds plausible. That sounds like something really devious. The hippie babysitter, it's like, this is clearly crap because it's so idiotic. It's obviously like, you can't trust those hippies. They may cook your kids. And and like I had heard it a few times over the years, and I just thought, okay, like clearly this is such bunk because the story keeps changing in ways. It depends on who the teller is. It's like the aristocrats joke. So yeah, so when the movie came out, I was very familiar with this, and because this is 1998, really the internet is still in its infancy, as we would say. This isn't like today where you've got memes and TikToks and you've got Vines and you've got YouTube videos. You've got the Vines. That's what the kids call it.
Wow, that's a blast from the past, babe.
There you go. So there's all these things now where, it's like urban legend debunked. But at this point, it was still a game of telephone. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do you remember any urban legends that you heard prior to this movie or around the time of this film?
No. I think like when we started watching the film, I think I'd only seen this movie once. I came out in 98, the year I graduated high school.
So you did not see this in the theater?
No, I might have.
Because I saw this opening night with my college buddies, and we had a blast.
Yeah, I don't remember when I saw it, but I know I've seen it before. I did not remember who the killer was. I did not remember anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at one point I was like, is this person the killer? And you're like, oh, you don't remember.
Well, because I'll tell you what, and we'll get to it, but when we finally get to the reveal of the killer, that's another thing about this movie that does not hold up at all. It's so ridiculous. We'll talk about it,
but it doesn't work at all.
Yeah, okay. And that's one of the things I remember about this movie, because I like the film, but man, that third act, oh man.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. Okay. So our movie opens up on a dark and stormy night where a girl is driving and she's singing to the song Turn Around, which you hate this song.
I can't stand it. I totally clips of the heart. I hate that song.
I know. And
I'm like, man, this is a real horror film for me.
I was like, yes, this would be me. This would be me driving in a storm.
You're singing along.
Like,
it's a rainstorm.
Yeah, exactly.
Your head is like beating along with the windshield wipers. Oh, yeah, you're so happy.
Now and then I fall apart. Yeah, she was getting into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I'm like, if I was carpooling here, I would be like, can you just pull over? I don't care how wet it is. Please just drop me off right here. I'll walk. It's fine.
Okay, so she almost gets into an accident. She's listening to the girl on the radio who's the sex advice.
It's Tara Reid. Yeah.
At the university, she has her own radio show. And then she realizes she's on E. She pulls into this gas station and just starts honking her horn. I'm like, is this what people do out there in a rainstorm? They just honk their horn?
I guess she did want to get out of the car, and presumably there was someone. And sure enough, to her point, here comes wonderful Brad Dourif, an actor who, everything from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest to the voice of Chucky. I love Brad Dourif, and he's looking extremely Brad Dourif-y, sinister, long hair, scary.
Yes, very scary. So she hands him her credit card, and then he comes back in, and he's like, he stutters. And so he's telling her that the credit card company is on the phone, her card's not working, and she's like, ugh, this is the worst. So she puts a mace in her pocket and follows him into the office where she discovers that there's nobody on the phone. And so then she can't get out. He's locked the door. He's trying to tell her something, but she thinks he's a killer. And so she maces him. To
her point, he's acting like he's a killer.
He is. He's not making it very...
He's not like, okay, if you would just sit down, I'd have something very calmly to explain to you.
Yeah, exactly.
No, he's acting like Brad Dourif in a horror movie.
So she breaks the window. She goes back to her car. She drives off. And then he manages to yell, "There's someone in your backseat!"
In the back seat!
Of course she doesn't hear him because it's raining and she's driven off and she's freaked out. And then sure enough, our killer just dun dun raises up from the back seat and takes an axe to her and I guess They don't show it, but she maybe chops off her head.
It's pretty insane to think that it's an axe. Because, I mean, you got to take a really good swing from the back seat of a car to get the driver.
Yeah.
But the happy part of the scene is Brad Dourif is standing there like, I lost my stutter. I did it. So it's actually a really moving scene, I find.
It was actually happy. It's like a happy moment.
They should have cut back to him like, oh boy, this is a good day. I'm going to close early.
I'm cured. Oh my gosh. All right, so it's later on the same night. We're inside a coffee shop lounge at Pendleton University. And we have college student Parker, played by Michael Rosenbaum.
Yep.
And he's telling an urban legend called the Stanley Hall Massacre. Mm-hmm. So this is what it is. About 25 years ago, a crazy professor killed a dozen students at a closed down dorm on campus. So two of the students here, we have Natalie and Brenda. So Alicia and Rebecca Gayhart. All right, I'm just going to call our main gal Natalie. She's our redhead. It's
Alicia Witt. Yes.
Yeah, the main protagonist of this whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
Then Sasha, Tara Reid, who's the radio gal, she's there. We have Paul, played by Jared Leto.
Yes.
He's also there. And he works for the school paper. He's like you in college.
Thank you for saying that, because man, is this guy my stand-in for this movie. I was seriously this pretentious and insufferable about my days as a college journalist. I'd be like, you guys, like, there's a new U2 album, and I'm gonna review it. I gotta get an early copy. I gotta go down to like Best Buy and get a copy of it, and I'm gonna interview like the dean of students, and I'm gonna do this article about this mall opening. Like, seriously, I took it that seriously. This guy is the Woodward and Bernstein of college newspaper beats, and I'm just like, yeah, man. I'm right there with Leto right here. The way he's running around announcing everybody's going to win the Pulitzer before he's 30. I'm like, yep, checkity check. That was me.
That was you,
yep,
for sure.
Big time. And it still is.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Okay. So they're kind of talking about the Stanley Hall Massacre, like, oh, we don't believe that, That's the thing about urban legends, they're talking about that. And then we have our two... let's see, Natalie and Rebecca Gayhart doing the Bloody Mary gag, where they go in front of, is it Stanley Hall where they do it?
I guess, because, I mean, this is something that people do in mirrors, right?
Yeah.
Don't do it like at birthday parties in front of a mirror.
That's what I thought. I thought you were supposed to do it in front of a mirror. Now, I would never do it because I'd be too scared to do it. But they're doing it in front of, like, I don't know, like a boarded up building.
I don't understand this at all. Let me just throw this out here, because I have students in my horror film classes, and they've told me like, oh yeah, I've gone to a party and we've done the whole Candyman thing in front of a mirror. And I go, are you insane? Because, best case scenario, nothing happens. Yeah, exactly. Worst case scenario, you're dead. Like, I don't like those odds.
No.
Yeah.
No. I don't do that stuff.
I don't want Bloody Mary, whoever she is, to show up. I don't want the Candyman showing up. I don't want a goblin showing up.
Now, is the Candyman the same as like Candy Cane? Or is that a different movie?
Candy Cane is Joyride.
Oh, yeah.
Candyman is, he's a dead African-American with a hook where his hand used to be. Bees sort of signify his appearance. Oh. And yeah, he comes out of a mirror and hooks you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, the whole like Joyride movie.
Yeah, Candy Cane. And that's Ted Levine, who played Buffalo Bill.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That, ever since I saw that movie, like, I'm always like, oh, that voice. I can't.
Candy Cane?
Yeah. It gives
Puts the lotion in the candy cane basket?
Exactly. It gives me the shivers, the heebie-jeebies.
Ooh, the shivers.
Yeah.
That's a good title for a horror film right there.
The Shivers?
The Shivers,
There isn't one called that?
It's just called Shivers. But I think The Shivers, much better.
Yeah, that's much better.
Yep.
Okay, so while they're doing this Bloody Mary gag, which doesn't make any sense, Damon Brooks comes up, played by
Joshua Jackson.
Yeah, so he's taunting them because he's like making noises, like he's pretending to be like the Bloody Mary ghost.
Can we just say too that Joshua Jackson has bleach blonde hair in this? You take away the bleach blonde hair, he's still Pacey.
Oh yeah.
It's the same character. It's just the hair is what is the thing that makes it,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it's a good performance, though.
It is a good performance.
I like him. If George Clooney was ever going to have a son in a movie, he should definitely be played by Joshua Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
I always, that's the biggest compliment I can give him. I've always thought he had that kind of charisma. I do. I don't think his movie career panned out, and it's because of movies like this and The Skulls. But, like, Jackson's good. He's really good.
Okay, so Natalie and Rebecca Gayheart, they say goodnight, and Natalie goes home to her dorm room where she interrupts her goth roommate, Tosh.
Played by Danielle Harris from Halloween 4 and 5. Love Danielle Harris.
Having a pretty graphic sex scene with some other goth guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she's like, turn off the light!
Yeah.
Poor Natalie has to deal with, like, just this girl completely not caring that she shares a room with anybody.
I had a friend who went to Boston University, and she had an almost identical story to this.
Really?
That her roommate was constantly adventurous in the sack, and that she had to, constantly like have like earplugs and eye mask over her. Yeah, because
what a nightmare.
She lived in a den of sin.
Oh my God.
Yep.
I would be like, I need to move rooms. This is not working for me.
It's hard to find a good roommate.
It really is. All right. So the next day, all of our main characters,
a gaggle of teens, if you will.
Yes. They are in Professor Wexler's class.
Who plays him?
Robert Englund.
Yes. Horror royalty, Mr. Freddy Krueger himself.
Yeah.
And by the way, Shakespearean actor. He was a Shakespearean actor before he played Freddy. You can completely see that here. He has this pompous air about how he's playing it. I love Englund. Any chance to see Englund is great.
A babysitter receives menacing phone calls. And upon investigating them, she realizes that they are originating from an upstairs bedroom. The very room where she's left the children under her care to sleep. Now, who's heard this before?
Well, that really happened to a girl in my hometown.
Oh, yes, I'm sure it did. I'm sure most of you grew up thinking that this happened to girls in all your hometowns, but it didn't. You see, the babysitter and the man upstairs is what we call an urban legend. Contemporary folklore passed on as a true story. Now, there are variations of this one going back to the 1960s, all of them containing the same cultural admonition. Young women, mind your children, or harm will come your way.
So what is his class exactly? Because the whole thing is about urban legends.
That's
in a
it.
movie called Urban Legend.
Yeah.
I mean, he's getting paid to just talk about urban legends at,
I think this
at
is
a
one of those.
university.
This is one of those BS classes that you don't tell your parents you're taking this class.
They're like, oh, I need 3 credits to graduate.
Exactly.
I'm just taking this.
Yeah. It's that kind of class. And then you tell your parents about it and like, oh, come on, Mom, I'm learning a lot. Didn't you ever hear about the hippie babysitter? They're teaching you what?
Well, this is where he kind of describes what an urban legend is and how it changes over time, the whole telephone thing we discussed.
Yeah, most horror films have scenes where a teacher explains to a classroom sort of the plot of the movie. I mean, Halloween has a scene like this, Nightmare on Elm Street has a scene like this. So at least here it's a college class and he's using some really cool visuals. He's got one of those great giant like overhead projectors. So the visuals are cool. It's not, the typical thing where they're all in a classroom and the one young girl looks out the window and the monster is across the street staring at her, which is such a used trope. In this case, like it becomes, this is as Scream-like as the movie becomes. This is the meta part of the film where it becomes a joke about itself.
Yeah, because he tells them like, okay, Rebecca Gayheart, you come up here and eat these Pop Rocks and then drink this soda. And she's like, no, I can't because my insides will explode. And he's like, that's an urban legend. It's not real. So why don't you try it?
Have you ever heard of this urban legend?
I have heard that like you shouldn't do that, but not that my insides would explode.
Interesting.
Yeah. But then, Pacey gets up there. Just kidding. Damon, whatever.
It's okay. It's all right.
He goes up there and he does it and then fakes a seizure. I mean, this is...
Did he do it just to screw around, or do you think Wexler, like, said, I'm giving you an A if you do this for
No,
me?
I think he was like... Oh, you think Wexler was in on it?
I think Wexler might have said, like, look, you've skipped 4 of our classes so far. You got a solid D. How
he
about...
did seem awful calm.
No kidding.
Like, he wasn't like, call 911. Maybe.
Or maybe he's just like, I've never liked this kid. So if he really is dying on me right now, so be it. I hate that Pacey kid.
Yeah, so it just, like, this thing, it says that Wexler is annoyed and his friends are amused, but I don't know. Like, if that happened in your class, you'd be blowing your whistle.
I'd freak out. Yeah, if one of my students was dying in front of me.
Well, faking a seizure, but that you thought was real.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, the way Pacey, the way Sir Joshua Jackson's playing it, he's acting like his insides are exploding and he's spitting up fluids and and Robert Englund's like, all right, this job just got interesting.
Yeah. So maybe
he's like, screw it, I got tenure.
That's hilarious. Okay, so later that day, we have Natalie and Rebecca Gayheart. They see Paul distributing newspapers and detailing the murder from the night before of our friend Michelle.
So yeah, Michelle was played by Natasha Gregson Wagner. She's the daughter of the late great Natalie Wood. And I got to say, this whole opening scene with Brad Dourif, it was done a decade earlier in a film I like a lot called Nightmares.
Oh, this exact scene?
Basically.
Oh.
Like beat for beat.
Wow.
The wife leaves her husband and son, even though she hears on the radio that there's a serial killer on the loose in her neighborhood, but she's like, I got to get my smokes. So she drives around and she's trying to find a gas station that's open. They're closed. And finally she finds one. It's the same thing where a creepy looking dude comes to pour her gas. He looks in her back seat. He pours the gas for her and he's like, I really want to show you something inside the gas station. She's like, okay. So she goes inside with him. She realizes he's just creepy. So she makes a run for it. He throws out the line like, he's in the backseat of your car. And I believe the guy at the gas station, he manages to pull his gun in time and shoot the serial killer before he jumps up and stabs her to death.
Oh.
And so, in that case, it's an anti-smoking ad. So it's very positive. Leaves you with a real uplifting feel. But no, this is an entire sequence from a movie that came out in 1983. And one of the stories that Wexler's telling, the story of Have You Checked the Children? That's the plot of When a Stranger Calls. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that this movie never references the horror movies that it brings up.
Oh, yeah, only the legends.
Just the legends, yeah. Like, no one ever says, like, it kind of sounds like the plot of Halloween 2. No one ever does that. It's always about these urban legends. Well, maybe
it's making the point that it doesn't matter because all of the legends are creating the narratives that we see.
Sure. And you're right. And a lot of these stories originated from these tall tales that still circulate in the zeitgeist. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So now we meet Dean Adams.
Played by John Neville.
And our campus security guard, Reese.
Yeah. Played by Loretta Devine. And of all things, this is the character that made it into the second film.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're trying to take all the copies of the school paper about the recent murder to try to confiscate them. And Paul is just like, you can't do that. This is fine. He thinks he's going to win a
Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because of this story.
Yep. I've been there, man. Been there.
He's like, freedom of speech. So Adams tells Paul that there is no killer and the only crazy person is him. So... yeah.
Suspect number one.
All right. So later that day, our cast of main characters meet to discuss the murder. And Natalie claims to not know Michelle, the murder victim. Mm-hmm. And because everyone's like, oh, did you know her? But really, we see later on that Natalie went to high school with her.
Yes.
And they were like cheerleading captains together. So... that would be like me and my BFF in high school. It's like one of us got murdered, and I was like, no, I didn't know her.
This is very R.L. Stein. Yes.
Exactly. Okay. So now we know that Natalie, she's obviously upset that Michelle was murdered.
Yeah.
And so Damon tries to comfort her. And he's like, come on, let's go for a drive. I'm a really good listener. So he takes her out into like the middle of nowhere.
Into the woods.
Yeah.
And we should talk about probably the funniest gag in the movie is he turns on the radio.
Yeah, he turns on his car and it's like, I don't want to wait.
For just a moment. But it does get a huge laugh because at that point, Dawson's Creek and that, especially that theme, were just ubiquitous. You couldn't escape it.
It made me laugh out loud. Yeah, even now, like over 20 years later. Okay, so he's trying to just basically put the moves on her. Yeah. And like, let's just like get it on in this car right now.
In the middle of the woods.
In his crappy car that barely starts, you know.
That's so pacey.
I know. And so she's like, no. She punches him in the face. And then he's like, fine, I just gotta go, you know, pee, and then I'll be right back. So he leaves.
Famous last words.
Yeah, so he leaves, and then our killer tries to strangle him. And it's a pretty quick cut, I noticed. It was kind of like the killer, like, puts a rope around, and then we, like, cut back to Natalie in the car. Mm-hmm. Where she's just kind of waiting, like, Pacey, where are you?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's not great, and we'll get into it, but when we find out who the killer is, it's especially implausible that this person could pull this off, let alone without help.
Okay, so Natalie goes to check on him. The killer, wearing the heavy overcoat, attacks her, so she tries to drive away, and then we realize Damon is tied to a rope attached to the bumper of the car, and as she moves the car forward, basically his like toes are touching the roof of the car, right? And it's like
he needs the car to
not
keep
die
from
yeah. And then, but obviously she sees the killer, so she's going to try and get away. And then when she drives off, she can only go so far because there's a rope tied to the tree, tied to her car. Damon gets, you know, decapitated. Well, not really. I mean, strangled.
You know what's scarier? The story that Bill Murray tells in Meatballs about the hook that gets stuck in the side of the car because they drive away just as the killer's about to show up. That's scarier than this scene.
Yeah. Well, the whole scene, I'm just like, wait, what? Because
there are simpler ways to kill Joshua Jackson than this.
It seems very complicated. And they're only doing it because it's an urban legend.
Right.
Yeah. So she gets away, goes and tells Reese, campus security, and then they come back and the car and the body, everything's gone.
Yes.
So, all right. So the next day, everyone's like, Damon, he wasn't murdered. He's just like on a trip. He's just on a weekend trip. Like probably just like having sex with some girls. Like, don't worry about it. Like, nobody believes Natalie at all that she was with him, and she basically saw his body crash into into the windshield.
You know, this again, it's only plausible because it's not the world we live in today. There's no social media. He's left no footprint. There's no self-documentation. It's like, okay, they're not around, so presumably they're on vacation somewhere.
Yeah, they're like, that Damon, he's such a practical joker.
It's wanderlust. He probably went to Amsterdam or something.
No. Okay, so this is when Natalie goes to the library to research urban legends and finds the Encyclopedia of Urban Legends.
Yeah, I seriously don't think this existed. And then the Encyclopedia of Urban Legends that I read was published in 2002. So I really think this movie had a huge hand in that becoming a reality.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I looked up on Amazon and found a few different types of these books, and the one that actually is called the Encyclopedia of Urban Legends, it's over $150. And
was it a prop from this movie?
Well, the cover isn't as interesting, I guess. Well, maybe it's more interesting because this looks like an encyclopedia in the movie, and this other cover has some kind of picture on it. But it wasn't published till about 2018.
I didn't even know what an urban legend was until I saw this movie, man. And for me, these were just scary stories. Period.
Yeah. What if the movie had just been called Scary Stories?
Not as effective.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So while Natalie is in the library, and she's actually hanging out with Tara Reid's character, kind of talking about the urban legends. goth roommate Tosh is like chatting it up with some stranger trying to like hook up. What, like in an AOL chat room? Like what is she doing?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So, and she's like, ooh, what are you into? And it's like lithium. It's like, is that a thing? I don't know enough about drugs, so.
I think you and I are a little too Squaresville to really discuss this part of the movie.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So then the killer, like...
We're a little out of our depth here, Jules. So, what are you going to do with the lithium? And why are you wearing black if the lights are out? I mean, is it a fashion statement? I mean...
I don't know.
I mean, just listening to Stabbing Westward. I mean, do you like Stabbing Westward? I mean, couldn't you just listen to the theme from Dawson's Creek? I mean, I just don't get this character.
Well, so she goes in the bathroom to freshen up, and when she comes back, she types in the chat, like, where are you? And the person writes, like, in your room. I mean, do they have the technology?
She's like, that's hot.
Well, that's the thing is, what kind of technology? They don't have cell phones that can I mean, what does the killer have, a remote laptop that they're using? Like,
that's a good point.
Under
this
a
is
bed?
1998.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it's like, what is she typing on? She doesn't, there's no iPhones. So I'm calling BS on this tech.
Okay.
So then the killer attacks Tosh, and the lights are out, and bad things are happening. And then Natalie comes home and then almost turns on the light, but she's like, you know what? I learned from last time. I do not want to see Tosh in some ridiculous sex position. So,
because she hears all sorts of, grunting and whatnot, and just assumes
that a good time is being had, but a good time is not being had. So she puts on her headphones and just goes to sleep. And then wakes up in the morning like, this room is so quiet, so peaceful. And then she wakes up and just, there's a pile of blood. There's her roommate dead.
And what's written on the wall? What's written?
Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the lights?
Oh! So scary.
Actually, that is scary.
Yeah. No, seriously, this story freaked me out.
Okay, because what had to happen was the killer killed Tosh, then had to take her blood and write that on the wall while Natalie was sleeping.
Right. Although I envision, especially if you know who the killer is at the end, you do kind of envision the killer being like, aren't, wait, is there an apostrophe there? Doggone it, I gotta erase this.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. Where's my paintbrush?
I ran out of blood. Doggone it. Ugh. This is gonna take me all night.
Oh my gosh. Did she have a flashlight to be able to like...
No, you gotta do it in the dark.
You gotta do it in the dark?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Because it's scary. Plus, you're doing it with this, under this, this snow jacket.
Yeah,
So you're trying not to get any blood on the snow jacket.
Well, it's like, so she's just writing on the wall, this person in a jacket, and Natalie's just like, la la la. Like, what music is she listening to? Where she's just...
Well, the soundtrack to Dawson's Creek, obviously.
Obviously. Or maybe it's like... Never mind.
The killer's like just like drawing on the wall, like, fine, don't help me, just sleep. Go ahead.
Okay, so the next day, everyone thinks Tosh committed suicide instead of being murdered. And they're like, obviously, that message on the wall is a suicide note. What?
Yeah, likewise. That doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Yeah.
No. But Natalie convinces Paul that Tosh's death is not a suicide. And so now they're looking for evidence about the Stanley Hall massacre because they realize that there's no evidence and all the old newspaper clippings in the library from 1972 are gone. So I don't know how they put like those two things together, but I think they realize like, oh, it's an anniversary. It's like a really big anniversary, like 25 years.
They always are in these movies.
Yeah.
It's been 20 years to the very night that the gerbil killings of the Montrose pet store occurred.
Killer gerbils just like went nuts. Were they also on lithium or?
Were they dressed in black as well? Seriously, we don't understand this part of the movie. Okay,
so then we see creepy janitor, which is definitely the movie trying to throw us off on who the killer is.
Yeah, it's a little too obvious when it's the creepy janitor.
Because I'm like, oh, it could be that guy. And then I'm like, it's never that guy. Don't fall for that.
Clean, clean, clean. That is all I do. Clean, clean, clean. I'm watching you.
So they're like, but they ask him about the Stanley Hall Massacre, and he's like, talk to Wexler. Like, could he be any creepier? I mean, he's just creepy the entire time.
Poor guy.
So Natalie and Paul sneak into Wexler's office to find evidence, and they find like a secret door.
Because as someone who has an office at a university, we all have secret doors in our little broom closet offices.
I know. I was like, wow, this office is pretty epic.
Oh, it's amazing.
You know, like you just have like a hideout office inside your office.
I mean, my dear friend, who is the head of a department and had all sorts of letters after his name, he was lucky to have a door and a window.
Do you even have a window?
Do I now? Yes, I do now. I do now. Okay. In my first office, I did not. Did you ever see my first office?
I don't know.
Oh, man. I mean, it literally, I think it used to be a broom closet.
Yeah.
Because I had a desk, but it was a cement room. So like, it was like brick walls. So it was crazy claustrophobic. I put some movie posters up, and I had a shelf of DVDs and video cassettes, and it still felt like the walls were closing in on me. I always had to leave the door open because I felt like if I don't, these walls are eventually going to swallow me up.
Were you worried about a creepy janitor coming by and like being like, it's time for me to clean this office? And then
so your office is so small. Here, I'll just sweep, and I'm done. I'll see you tomorrow, Barry.
Well, so they find an axe and the exact coat.
Although he probably just went to Sears and bought that snow coat on sale, because everybody in this movie has one of those ridiculous coats.
Yeah. And so then Wexler basically catches them in his office because, of course.
And I love his explanation. He's like, look, I needed that axe for my lesson. Okay, it was in the lesson plan.
It's a prop. Oh my gosh. Get it together.
A prop. This is a class about the zeitgeist, right? And he's like, I have props for this class.
I need a real axe as a prop.
Like, it's not performance art, man. It's a class about sociology.
So the dean is like really upset with Paul and Natalie, and
not of the fact that he has someone in his staff who has an axe, a weapon basically that he's threatening to use in a class. No, it's like, how dare you snoop around?
Yeah. Well, so Paul gets fired from the newspaper by his editor.
Oh, I've been there.
Man,
that hurts.
That was rough. And then it comes out that Natalie has a criminal record for reckless endangerment.
Yeah.
And we're like, what does it mean? But she won't. She's like, I don't want to talk about it, of course. So, but she had to serve a year of probation. And they both like stop investigating urban legends. Like, you can't do this anymore. But do our protagonists stop? No.
It'd be pretty weird if the main characters in a movie called Urban Legend just stopped pursuing urban legends and they're like,
twist.
Let's just go to a community college and like study botany together.
Yeah. And
it just ends with like, I don't want to wait for our lives. They're driving off, and it's like directed by Jamie Blanks.
Yeah. When you
I'd be like, that's the greatest twist ending of all time. The movie just stops being a horror film.
Would you think that would be great, or do you think people would hate it?
I think people would hate it, and I would love it, because that's amazing. That's a movie that just like, we're just going to stop being a horror movie. We're going to try to be something else for a while. That'd be amazing. Can you imagine? That'd be like if When Harry Met Sally ended with like a shootout.
Yeah.
Seriously. Movies need to do that. There is one movie I could think of. It is a Rainier Fassbinder film. It is about a guy. I think it's called What is Wrong with Herman Helmet? I think that's the name of it. No, it's about a guy who is a normal, everyday guy. He goes to work, comes home to his wife and kids, his family, repeat. It's just like, it's very redundant. It's just the daily life of this guy who has a job. And one day he murders his family, and then the movie ends.
What?
It's astonishing. Yeah, because
Oh
there's
my
no
gosh.
build up to it. You're watching this guy for the entire movie. He seems like a completely normal guy. We have no window to his inner life. So suddenly when he turns on his family,
Wow.
yeah, it's horrifying.
That's crazy. Well, that's like kind of what it must be like for people who have, I don't know, who know people that have been murdered. And they're like, yeah, we knew that guy. He
Yeah, the
seemed
nicest guy. That's what they always
He seemed
say.
so nice. He was so normal.
Exactly.
And then so watching that movie probably gave people like a little window into what that feels like.
I think so. And I think that's one of the reasons Fassbinder made that film. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. Anyway.
Okay, so later Natalie walks into the campus swimming pool where Rebecca Gayheart is doing laps when she thinks she sees the killer approach.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a figure in a winter coat that looks exactly like the killer's. And
Because
so
everybody here shops at the same Savers. They've all like went to the same sale. It's so
like
ridiculous.
TJ Maxx sale on winter coats, just come on down. It's a blue light special.
Sorry. That movie was called Why Does Hair R Run Amok from 1970. That's the Fassbinder film I'm talking about. Yeah, it's terribly
Well,
disturbing.
now
Anyway,
everyone who's heard it already knows the twist, so I don't know if they're going to want to watch it.
you should definitely watch it. Yeah. And I think it's a little easier to take if you know the twist, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe watch it with somebody who doesn't know the twist.
Oh, that's so mean.
And then you can talk about it together.
Great.
Yeah.
Love
good
it.
idea. Okay. So Natalie is watching who she thinks is the killer, like come into the swimming pool, and she picks up, she's like up above, you know, looking down from this window, and she picks up a chair and like breaks, you know, the window. And then this girl just like unzips her coat, like she's going to get in the pool with Natalie, like she's part of the swimming team. And then, I mean, with Rebecca Gayheart. And then Natalie's just like, oh, you're not the killer. Oh, okay. I guess I broke this window for no reason. Does she have to pay for that window, by the way?
No, I don't think anybody realized that she did it.
Nobody.
I think she just kind of backs away and runs. The movie is missing a scene where Natalie's running around just like pointing at everyone, Snow Jacket Killer! Snow Jacket Killer!
Yeah. I mean, if I was her, I would be eyeing everybody with a black coat that has like fur around the hood.
I don't know where this movie is supposed to take place, but it looks like those nights are cold, so everybody's presumably wearing this jacket that they all got on sale from Sears.
Yeah. Well, and it's not even snow, it's just rainy weather.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's a
Okay.
one sweaty serial killer.
So now we're back in the locker room, and this is where Rebecca Gayheart is like, nobody's going to get me. You know, you're freaking out. And so this is where Natalie confides in her that, okay, she was with Michelle. First of all, she knows Michelle. And she was with Michelle one night when they were like driving together. It must have been in high school. And they're doing, which urban legend is it called? Where you drive with your lights off?
Yes. Yeah, if you drive with your headlights off.
Yeah, and then then when another car approaches you and they flash their brights at you, like, hey, idiot, turn on your lights, you do a U-turn and you chase that car. And so Michelle just thought that would be a super fun thing to do and ends up driving this guy off the road. And so that guy ends up dying. So Natalie is telling Rebecca Gayheart, like, I was in the passenger seat with Michelle that night. And she basically was like, I was trying to get her to stop, but Michelle seemed like kind of a crazy lunatic that night to just like keep going and like drive faster. And then this guy gets killed. All right. So now we know that Natalie and Michelle were a part of this urban legend.
Yes.
And
Which is, by the way, is a dumb urban legend. The whole thing with the lights. It's so stupid. It's just bad driving.
well, yeah.
Ooh, and he forgot to signal. Ooh. It's, yeah, dumb.
Oh no, tailgating.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Okay, so that same evening, we see Dean Adams in the parking garage. And I think he talks to Reese for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And she is like wondering where Damon is. And he's like, it's the weekend. Like, he's probably just, off doing what college guys do.
They're really giving Pacey the benefit of the doubt.
They really are. So she leaves, and then Dean Adams gets his ankle slashed by the killer who's underneath his car.
Yep.
So then he's like crawling on the ground, like blood just coming everywhere. And the killer runs him over with his own car. And then I honestly think this is like the worst death, because the Dean, like, you know those spikes when you go into parking garages?
Yes.
And it's like, don't back up because
Right.
your tires will get slashed. Okay, like those spikes go through his head or his neck or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the worst. He gets his ankle slashed, and then he gets run over, and then he gets spiked.
I think the worst thing would be just seeing that the person who killed you is wearing a snow jacket, and the last thing to go through your head is, why are you wearing that?
Okay. Okay, so the Dean is gone, and now we're going to a fraternity party that Parker, who's been out of the movie this whole time,
Yes.
is finally back in the movie.
Yep.
So, and then we see that he has a cute little dog.
He does. A cute little white dog. And you think, no, this movie's not going to be cruel enough to kill the dog.
I mean,
no, what kind of
Hootie?
movie would do that?
His name's Hootie.
You know who hates this movie? Darius Rucker.
Hootie and the Blowfish?
Yeah, Darius Rucker.
Yeah, Hootie.
Yeah, I'm saying he probably hates this movie.
I understand.
You know who else hates this movie? The Blowfish. I don't know their names.
How many are there?
3? I don't know.
All right, well,
How many people does it take to sing Hold My Hand?
You're always bragging that you know all about musicians, so I don't know.
I was not a fan of Hootie and the Blowfish. I'll look it up. How many of these people were there?
I'm just kidding.
With a little loving
It doesn't
and some
matter.
tenderness.
It doesn't even matter. Okay. So we find out
It was a quartet. There was 4 of them.
Oh, so you were right. There's 3 Blowfish.
Do you think they like being known as, yeah, we were the Blowfish?
Do you think they regret naming their band that?
I really do.
Yeah. They're like, oh, why couldn't we be you two? That's so much cooler.
Anything would be cooler than the Blowfish.
That's true. All right, so now Paul, he arrives at the party with an old newspaper article that was given to him by a creepy janitor, which tells that Professor Wexler, was the sole survivor of the 1972 Stanley Hall massacre, and that he may be responsible for the killings. So their theory is, well, he's the one who survived, so now he's just gonna like continue with the urban legends.
Yeah.
And what better cover than to be a professor who teaches about urban legends and then pull them off yourself?
It's very convenient, but it is an angle the movie wants us to go for.
Yeah, it wants us to think that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very silly, but okay.
And so now we also know Natalie, she kisses Paul because she's scared. And he's just there to comfort her and just wants to keep her safe.
Paul is played by Jared Leto. No further explanation necessary.
I know. But then Rebecca Gayheart sees them and she is in a jealous rage.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I would be too if I was her. 'Cause she's had her eye on Paul.
Look, it's Jordan Catalano, okay? This is before Jared Leto played Psychopaths, which he's been doing a lot lately. This is back when we knew him from My So-Called Life. He's got a haircut in this movie, but it's still Jordan Catalano.
That's
so
true.
we get it. We
got Jordan, we got Pacey, we got all of our teenage
all of our
favorites.
favorite TV characters.
Yep. All right, so a little later during the party, Parker gets a phone call and told that something has happened to his dog and to go check the microwave. I was not expecting this. I mean, he did. Now, I do want to say Parker is a terrible dog owner, and he does get his dog drunk by giving him like a beer thing.
Was it a wine cooler?
No, he gives him like, like the tube that, I don't know. I don't even know what it is because I never did that kind of stuff. But
I love that you and I are too square to talk about some of the finer points of this movie.
But
like the hat that has like the straw in it with the beer in it? He gave that to the doggy.
Well, it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
He gave him like a beer bong or something. And then you see the cute little dog running away with it.
Maybe Hootie has like a cleft palate, and he needs like special help to be able to drink the beer. The doctor approved canine beer that is helping him with his rickets.
No. This cute little Westie that is so adorable is not being taken care of. You don't take a cute little Westie to a frat party. Okay.
And by the way, does the dog really die?
Oh, because we
have a graphic shots of inside the microwave, and it looks like there's pieces of bone and stuff like that. But is it really what they say it is? I'm not so sure.
Well, that's true, because the dog is pretty... I mean, Westies are probably 30, 40-pound dogs.
Yeah.
And I don't think...
It's a small microwave.
I don't think you could fit that.
And I mean, really, it looks like what would
microwave.
happen when I was a freshman. I would put a pot pie in the microwave, hit the bake button, and forget about it. And then I would open the door and be like, oh, it looks like something exploded in there.
Yeah, your Hot Pocket? Well, yeah, I don't know, because it's like two kind of like bloody blobs, and then just like...
I think we're supposed to think it's the dog, but I don't know. I'm not completely convinced on this plot point, but there's a lot in this movie I'm not really convinced about.
Yeah. Well, he runs into a bathroom, throws up, and then the killer attacks him and pours Pop Rocks and liquid Drano down his throat. Is that an urban legend? The Pop Rocks and the Drano? I mean, maybe that's from The Class.
It is pretty ridiculous that the killer not only is doing this while wearing a snow jacket, but has a funnel in hand.
Yeah. This killer is
pretty zany, I must say.
Okay, well, now we get to Sasha getting Tara Reid getting attacked at the radio station. So she's on air, and then we see her sound producer getting attacked in the other room. Yeah. And then she's like, oh, what's happening? And then she sees the killer, and she's wearing some headset. Yeah. So again, 1998 tech, she's running around this building and still broadcasting her show. I call more BS on this, because the people at the frat party are like, wow, she's so good. This is some great theater she's doing. And she's freaking out.
If I was in college and I was listening to this, especially when I was a theater major, I would think the same thing.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Like, oh, man, I hate this show. You guys listening to this? This is great. She's totally going for it.
Wow. Well, what would she have to say to get help?
Well, obviously, Help Me is not going to convince you, because it's like, oh, man, she's just they're doing a performance tonight. This is like War of the Worlds. This is amazing.
Yes, exactly. Okay. But again, how is she transmitting with this technology? She's not plugged into anything.
Yeah, it's a wireless mic that they wouldn't invent for years later.
Okay.
It doesn't make any sense. I agree.
But Natalie is like, oh no, this is not performance art. This is real. And so she runs.
Natalie's the only one who sees through all the stuff going on at this university.
Yeah, she's the only smart one. Mm-hmm. But she's also being played by the killer. The killer is messing with her.
Yes.
So.
But at this point, you were convinced that it was Jordan Catalano.
Oh, at this point, because so the killer kills Sasha, and you see Natalie see kind of what's happening, and the killer kind of waves at her from up high. Yeah. And then she runs away, and then you literally see Paul come running up, and she's like, where have you been? So I'm like, oh no, maybe it's Paul.
Maybe it's Paul.
And I said, oh no, it's Paul? And you said, oh, you don't remember? And I'm like, oh man, I really didn't want it to be him. But you weren't telling me.
No, I'm not going to ruin it.
That it was him. I think you were surprised I didn't know. Were you surprised I didn't know?
Only because, that's the thing about this movie I remember really well is the third act reveal. Yeah, it's because it's just, we'll get to it.
Okay. Now we have Sasha. So Sasha's gone. Okay. And now Reese is searching Wexler's office, and she falls down in some blood. She's calling the police. There's a thunderstorm, of course. Roads washed out, of course. Natalie runs into Paul and tells him that Sasha was killed. Then they find Rebecca Gayheart, and then they are kind of suspicious about her. Are they suspicious about her at this point?
I don't think so.
I don't think they are. I think Rebecca Gayheart is trying to get Natalie to be suspicious of Paul.
Yes.
That's what's happening. Okay, so they drive away from campus and they're going to go get help at a gas station. And when Paul goes inside, Rebecca Gayheart and Natalie are like, what's that smell? And they find the dean dead in the trunk. And so then they're like, I do think it's funny when Rebecca Gayheart's like, you can have him. Like the one funny line. Okay, so they both run off into the woods and then Paul is like, wait, where are you guys going?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're with Natalie and she kind of gets separated from the other two and she flags down a car and of course it's creepy janitor guy. And so
time to shine.
I know, so she gets in the car. She's like, somebody's after me. And he's like, oh, are you cold? I have a jacket. And of course, it's the snow jacket that our killer has been wearing.
And it's just not interesting because it's like everybody in this town has this jacket.
Like, how?
Everybody went to the same outlet mall. Everybody bought it at the same sale. And everybody's wearing the same stupid snow jacket.
So then she just like gets out of the car. Like she just like opens the door. Because she's like, oh no, you're the killer.
Yeah.
All right. So now Natalie runs back to campus, which I don't know. Would you go back to this campus after that?
I would think about transferring to a junior college at this point.
I mean, I would be like, the last place I would go would be the campus.
It's like, I'm going to transfer my credits. I'm going to go to a non-murdering university.
Yeah. So Natalie returns. She tries to call the police. She hears screams from the abandoned Stanley Hall building. And this is where she breaks in to look around and finds the dead bodies of Parker, Adams, and Damon. And she finds Rebecca Gayheart lying motionless on the bed. There's like all these candles around.
Yeah.
And you can tell that Rebecca Gayheart is faking it because you can see her breathing. But this is now she gets knocked out. Rebecca Gayheart wakes up and like knocks out Natalie and then ties Natalie to the bed. And now we know who our killer is. I feel like it took me forever to get to that, but I was surprised again.
Well, they chose the least possible character to be the killer in this movie. And it's a lot of things. You know, Rebecca Gayheart is adorable, but she's also this little thing who we're supposed to believe can do things that Sylvester Stallone would have a hard time doing by himself. She's doing it by herself. And that's one of the things about Scream that's so disturbing is that it's a couple of killers. You know, at the end of the film when we realize who the two guys are, they're working together, it's disturbing because not only do they share this devious imagination, but they're both willing to go through with these horrendous killings. And in this case, it just doesn't make any sense that she'd be the one to do it. Her motivation is a little bit muddy. And the thought that she can commit these very elaborate crimes and get away with it and conveniently turn up later on and make it like, hey guys, what's going on? I don't buy it.
No. And you know what? She needs to have massive upper body strength to do all of these things. There's no way.
And she's doing it while she's carrying a heavy axe and wearing the same Sears bought snow jacket that everyone in town is wearing.
There's no way she could have dragged Damon's body through the woods, hoisted him up while he was still somewhat conscious with a noose and tied everything to a tree. Like, there's no way that could have happened.
You know, Michael Myers has always had this very eerie sense of strength. It's like, where does all that strength come from? And
from the evil inside of him?
Exactly. This is someone who has had hatred and rage inside of him his whole life. So it's like that's what fuels him. Plus, he's got excellent upper body strength. And he's dressed in this onesie, this killer onesie. Yeah, in this case, I mean, it's this constricting snow jacket, which would be great if you worked in Antarctica. Not so great if you're trying to commit elaborate murders in broad daylight carrying an axe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really crazy.
Yeah.
So we find out that the guy who was ran off the road by Michelle and Natalie was Rebecca Gayhart's fiance. And they were going to be married soon. And that was the love of her life. And oh my gosh, you will never know that kind of love. And it was stolen from her. So now she feels like she is entitled to just like kill everybody.
Yeah.
And that's why now she's going to do her last urban legend, which is the kidney heist. So she's going to steal Natalie's kidneys or liver or whatever. She doesn't care. She's just going to I'm just going to grab the first organ I see. That is disgusting.
It's weird. And it's also a scene in the sequel, weirdly enough. The sequel actually does the kidney scene as an urban legend.
Who does?
The sequel, or Urban Legends Final Cut, which came out 2 years later. Yeah, they do it in a literal way where a girl wakes up in a tub full of ice and she's got stitches in her side and yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Urban Legends Final Cut, which came out in 2000, it was my pick for the worst film that year. And Battlefield Earth came out that year. Mm-hmm. And I think the sequel to Urban Legends was much, much worse. It's a terrible, terrible film. It's one of the worst horror movie sequels I've ever seen.
So go check it out.
Check it out, folks. Double feature, because Rebecca Gayheart is in that one too.
Oh, she has
a cameo at the end of it.
Yeah, because she does survive this one. But there's a whole thing with like Paul and Reese and a gun and a fight. And, you think that, okay, so Rebecca Gayheart gets shot at some point and then she falls out of the 2-story window.
Well, she did, and she monologues for 5 minutes. I mean, it's like Rebecca Gayheart is really going hard for that Fangoria Chainsaw Award for Best Supporting Actress. I mean, she's really playing the crazy, and it's kind of half there, but it's also one of these things where did this injustice that happened to her character, did she really need to avenge it this way? I mean, couldn't she have become a law student and just sued the crap out of Alicia Witt?
I know.
Did she have to become a serial killer?
Yeah, she could have done something good with her life, but...
It was never established even what the character of her late fiancé was. It's like, was he crazy and that therefore she became crazy? It just... when it comes to because it comes down to a revenge plot, but at the same time, it's like, did it need to be this drastic where you have to, it's one thing to punish someone for vehicular manslaughter. It's another thing to kill a dozen people.
Yeah. I mean, so she doesn't just kill Michelle, which is the only person that kind of makes sense to take revenge on. But it's like, no, I'm going to kill everyone in Natalie's circle now.
And in this elaborate way that suggests urban legends. Yeah.
Yeah. So, because she's going to pin it on somebody else. I think she was trying to, I don't know, she was trying to get on Paul's side where Paul could then write this amazing article and win the Pulitzer. And then he would want to be with her. It was also an elaborate matchmaking scheme in a weird way, which I was like, come on, Paul's not that desperate.
It's 1998 and I'm a writer for Cougar Tracks, and Rebecca Gayheart wants me to write a Pulitzer-winning article that justifies her murders. I'm like, gosh, that does sound like a pretty good ticket right there.
Yeah, but would you date her after that?
Good point. It's like, do I date this really nice girl, this blonde I just met, or do I go with the crazy girl? Gosh,
yeah, that's a tough call.
Yeah.
Really tough call.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I'll have to think about that one.
Paul and Natalie drive away, and then Brenda ends up in the back seat and attacks them with this axe.
It doesn't, no.
But so Paul crashes the car into a guardrail. Brenda smashes through the windshield off of a bridge into the river below, and we think she's dead. But no. Years later, maybe it's even the year after that, we see another group of college students at the same college talking about the urban legends. And then we see Brenda. So she has a totally different haircut, but it's the same girl. Rebecca Gayheart going, let me tell you the real story And that, my friends, is Urban Legend.
It's directed by Jamie Blanks, who I think is the real star of this movie. Jamie Blanks famously he really wanted to direct I Know What You Did Last Summer, so he came up with a fake trailer for it and submitted it to the studio. And they already decided to go with Jim Gillespie, who did a serviceable job. I don't think I Know What You Did Last Summer is all that great. But Jamie Blanks, his fake trailer, not using any footage from what was used in the movie, like he shot it on his own. It's stylish, it's atmospheric, it's moody, it's cool, and you could still find it online. So Jamie Blanks, because of that, he got the gig to direct Urban Legend, and I think he directs the heck out of it, which really helps because the screenplay is kind of hit and miss. And following that, he did my favorite film of his, which is Valentine. Urban Legend was a surprise hit. Valentine was a surprise flop. At least it was for me. I thought Valentine was really good for what it was. And I thought it was going to lead to a franchise. I thought, this is a slam dunk horror movie. No, it bombed really hard. And since then, he's gone back to doing low budget movies. This film is kind of a footnote as being one of those post-Scream movies. And, I'm not really in love with it anymore. I don't know if I was ever crazy about it. For me, it was always a 2.5-star movie. And it's for me, it's still that. It's okay.
Yeah.
I think it's better made and in some cases better acted than the material, but I think the screenplay has some major problems, especially in the third act. It doesn't quite all come together like it should. The cast is overqualified. You got a lot of horror film luminaries in the cast, and I think Alicia Witt and especially Jared Leto are exceptional here. But it's nasty in a way that doesn't always work because it's at times it wants to be jokey and funny and even satirical at times, and it can't be because it's got a real mean streak. So it wants to be Scream, but it also wants to be I Know What You Did Last Summer, and it kind of doesn't find that middle ground very well. For me, it's very middle of the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I give it 2 stars. I did jump a lot.
You really did.
Yeah. There were all the jump scares got me.
The one that got you that really surprised me is when they opened Robert Englund's closet door and it's a snow jacket and you went, oh! I thought, wow.
Well, because I thought the killer was in there.
It's like, man, that jacket made you jump.
Yeah. Well, every time I saw the jacket, I was like, ooh, boom. Because it's like, mm.
So next time you and I go to Sears or the outlet mall and you see that jacket, are you going to jump?
Yeah. I'm never wearing a black coat with a hood with
it's got
kind of
frilly stuff.
Gray fur around the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like something Cruella de Vil would wear.
You know what? I should have known it was a girl because no man would ever wear, except for the creepy janitor, fine. But no guy would ever wear this coat.
No, unless it was like the cast of The Thing. Otherwise, why would you wear something that hot and constricting to commit murder?
And they really tried to make it seem like it was like a unisex type of jacket.
Yeah.
But no, I'm sorry. This was a girl coat.
This is something you would wear if you want to go outside and make a snowman. That's it. Full stop.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't buy that Rebecca Gayheart had the upper body strength to do basically any of these murders. I think that I don't think she could have strangled Pacey. I don't think. I mean, even Tosh, the terrible roommate.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, she probably had more strength than her.
I feel bad because, look, it's not Rebecca Gayheart's fault that we don't believe in it. It's not just the fact that she's got these cute little scrawny arms and she's the Noxema girl. It's a bit of miscasting, and it's a misdirection that the movie doesn't quite earn.
Yeah, and also, how does she get all those bodies up to the second floor of this dorm without anybody seeing her?
You know what would have been a lot more fun? Make Robert Englund the killer.
Honestly,
make it Wexler and have him work with the janitor.
Yeah.
Because the janitor seems like an obvious lock. So you just make them a team. You do the Scream thing.
It kind of would make more sense, just realistically. Not that I would know how to pull off murders or anything.
He's not in that jacket.
No, but I'm just saying, how elaborate it was and moving dead bodies around to different locations. Yeah. I mean, come on. There's no way she would be able to do that. I mean, after trying to move one body, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to really rethink this. This is a bad idea. This is just too much work.
Yeah, agreed. There are better movies you could watch in this Halloween. I hope you all had a good Halloween. Make sure you for the urban legend, you got to make sure you don't have any razor blades in your cotton candy or your apples or your Snicker bar.
Oh yeah, my dad was always so freaked out at Halloween. He's like, when you come home, we're gonna sort through all your candy and make sure that nobody put any razor blades in your Snickers bars.
That's got to be an urban legend. I've never known anybody to find any of that stuff in their candy.
I know.
I mean, I don't eat candy if I know it's been, sometimes like you get those.
Obviously, it needs to be wrapped, professionally.
Yeah, if it's even open, if the candy bar is even open a slight bit, then okay, you don't touch that, you don't eat that, obviously, because the best case scenario is that it's stale.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, though, there was this neighbor that I knew. Her son was in my class, and she was like handing out caramel apples. And I'm like, lady, why are you spending all your time doing this? Only people that know you are even going to eat these. The rest of the parents are going to be like, those are going straight in the trash. Yeah. We know there's razor blades in those apples.
Wow. That poor lady. I just don't understand why they don't like my apples. I slave over it. I work in a day and night. I bob the apples and I boil the apples and I put it in the caramel.
Yeah, where is she from? What accent?
I'm from Dublin and I live here in Akron, Ohio. Nobody will touch my apples. No one. Okay. Why won't you touch my apples?
Yeah, that sounds weird. And this was California, so nobody had an accent like that. Why won't you touch my apples? All right. Well, on that note, we hope you enjoyed this silly.
If you're listening to this on Halloween or Arbor Day or Ray Charles's birthday, have a good night, everyone. This has been Urban Legend.
All right. That concludes our discussion of Urban Legend.